things come as a surprise, it's the script, and how do you react to it when you read it. And I read this from cover to cover, and it was very nerve-jangling, spine-tingling action thriller, but more than that, it carried a sort of emotional charge that I was surprised by. You really care about Jack Ryan. He's a very particular kind of character in this genre of film, and so it was the combination of his distinctive qualities and the fact that the story, I thought, was extremely gripping. I enjoyed his paradox. He's the best and the brightest, a brilliant analytical mind, but a sort of reluctant CIA man. And in this origin story, you get the chance to see how someone who originally had joined the Marines, had been sort of invalided out with a terrible helicopter crash and subsequent very, very serious back injury, quite where they go and what they do with their life, and whether they can find in themselves and for themselves another way to serve. And Jack Ryan does that, and this story allows us to see how that happens with a Jack who's quite vulnerable and contains those sort of regular guy qualities that make him very empathetic to us, I think. He has a kind of decency which plays strongly and compellingly. He's not, I think, in this version, as some people might regard him as sort of ultra-conservative hawk, if you like. He's a teacher of history and a very, very sophisticated analyst of world events, and so the chance to see a complex human being who is not a professional assassin, he's not come out of some kind of program, he's not having access to extremely sort of wacky, futuristic high tech, but he's in the real world, making a contribution in a sometimes covert world, as close as this picture allows to, as it were, you and I, this kind of picture. So he's our representative. The not ordinary is the wrong word for Jack Ryan, but that regular and familiar human quality, I think, makes us feel this very personal connection with him. Chris Pine brings to it, a very, very handsome, sexy lad who's a real thinking actor as well. And you do need, if Jack's an analyst, you need to be interested in watching him as he looks at something and analyzes it. And we have that quality with Chris. And he's someone who, moment to moment in a scene, is very questioning in a positive way about what's real and truthful and accurate. In this origin story, it was important that we understood how potentially being in the CIA involved Jack's friends and family in being sometimes uncomfortably or dangerously integral to the job that he does. The pressure to share or not share, and the reaction of people who've been, they might think, betrayed or lied to, becomes a very interesting dynamic. It puts pressure, a human pressure, back on Jack. So playing opposite him, Keira Knightley brings intelligence, she brings effortless beauty, she brings a real sense of the professionalism of Kathy as an equal. She's a professional eye doctor, as she puts it, great surgeon, and she was very good, Keira, at going back to find from the Tom Clancy lore everything that could be useful to making Kathy as full a figure as possible. I had a little support system there which I'd used previously, and it was nice to do it this time. So I felt that if with that in place, it would actually be wonderful fun to play this dark character. I never think of him as a villain, of course he is, but you don't. He's a man called Viktor Sherevin, and he's a very powerful oligarch. He is very closely and highly connected in the upper reaches of the Russian government, and he is something of a maverick. And he, when invited to be part of a retaliation against the US when the Russians have been denied what they feel is their due at the United Nations, he then does something so awful, but he does so with a sense of sort of personal investment in it. He has a grudge against America, he has a personal tragedy that fuels this as well. And he has a sort of ruthlessness about how he will achieve his means. So this means everyone's a potential victim. So he's one of those contained fellows mostly, but one of those ones you wouldn't want to cross. It makes him a very interesting character to play. Kevin Costner has been a commanding movie star presence across a period of the lives of my generation, across really a long period of time, and a vast number of very, very significant films, both very popular films that are memorable because they were, fun and enjoyable and ubiquitous, and ambitious films, including some of his own directing, that were really significant. So he was really part of the landscape of movies, and then he very consciously stepped out of things for 4 or 5 years. He spoke to me about that. And in coming back, he was recently terrific in the television miniseries Hatfields and the Boys. But actually, the sort of sense of how people greet him when he comes into a part like this, which in a way is tailor-made, a senior figure, still sexy, still attractive, still very easy on the eye, and wearing his maturity with effortless grace. He is so welcomed. He's understood to be a sort of a bit of an institution in a way that guarantees a number of things: quality and fun, and that in certain kinds of roles he seems to stand for a certain kind of America itself. He has that kind of iconic quality that one associates with legends of the past, like Gary Cooper or James Henry Fonda, James Stewart, who bring with them the sort of cumulative force of the movies they've been in, as it were, that were the visual soundtrack of our lives. And so you get Kevin Costner as Harper, and then you get a whole range of other characters as well somehow, a whole range of views of America. There's something about his feet in the ground representing something that goes way beyond how much he says and what he does. Meantime, in the middle of all of that, you've just got a terrific actor. I enjoyed all the previous movies, and we have the great pleasure of having the producer Mace Neufeld, who produced them all, be a producer here. So we have that sort of guiding taste as well. I think everybody was happy for it to be reimagined, to be reinvented, sort of from the inside out, and also for it to be something about arriving at Jack Ryan. But it's in a post 9/11 world that deals with covert agencies and the kinds of financial crises that can be global in a heartbeat, that we all have experience of watching unfold. The character could only be different, because circumstances were different. Essential characteristics remain the same in terms of the level of his ambition, his devotion to those he loves, some pleasing eccentricities, but Chris Pine just brings a modernity in his own way that all those other actors did, and that everyman quality that makes him particularly appealing. But he definitely bring him into the real world of now. Clearly there is with us establishing this origin story, there's an opportunity to lay out directions it can go. In this movie, the relationship is very passionately expressed between Kathy and Jack, but it's in no way resolved. I think there are good question marks at the end of where he goes, how he functions, which part of the CIA he may or may not be part of, and how active and how operational he is. I think just by virtue of the subject matter, it lays it out like that. Whether any of us are lucky enough to get involved with that remains to be seen, but I hope the audience enjoyed the possibility that this new Jack Ryan in the ever-changing and dangerous modern world we live in, has an interesting way to take us through some of those places and issues.